stand at the podium so we can see you.
Yeah, my sister-in-law
I
has
need a
some.
microphone.
She's always
Do
bragging.
I need a microphone?
Just yell and hook up on bars.
Whoa!
No. All right, ready? Oh.
We're live.
Welcome to the Fenton History Center. Our lecture tonight is by Barb Cessna, and she's our Vets Finding Vets program coordinator, and she has lots of cool information about Mr. Peters, I believe. But before the fun begins, I have to tell you about our historic walking tours. The next one that's coming is Allen Park at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, and Janet Wahlberg will be leading that. And then I wanted you to know
It's the president.
that I have a call. I want you to know that we're also hosting a movie called 10 Good Men on August 15th, and it's at the Jackson Center. And it's about a bomber, B-17 Flying Fortress. And Greg Peterson will also be doing some interviews with three gentlemen who were on Flying Fortresses, if I remember that correctly.
It's got snippets of their interviews.
So that'll be a very interesting movie, so keep that in mind. Finally, next month we have a change of lecture. Instead of Karen Livesey and Sam Jenko presenting on Corey Jamestown Manufacturing, Ned Ward is going to be talking about his book, The Last Raft, and the history of lumbering in our county and its economic value and all the things that came from that. And that's on the 18th. And that's my mother's birthday, so you have to remember that. And then finally, I'm going to pass the hat, and then we're going to get started. Barbara, come on up.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. I'm kind of surprised with the rain and everything. But I have to tell you about the beginning of this. Greg Peterson came into the Fenton History Center, and he had some things that, he had some of his own things that he was donating, and then he had some things that Jeff Bloomquist had given to him. And so in that, there were some things that belonged to Lloyd Peters, who was his foster father. And Greg said to me, there's a film in here that I hope somebody can make it so that you can see it, because it's about the Normandy, which was a French schooner, I believe. It was a ship. And France was already in World War II. So this was 1939. And so somehow Lloyd got this film.
And I gave it to Greg.
Yes.
And this past year, he said I was on a gold mine. And I didn't know anything about it, so he gave me a thumb thing for later on so I could have it. But we wanted to make sure they got it so they knew.
So that's where I started. I was trying to find Lloyd Peters, and I was trying to figure out how he had this film about the Normandy. And so the first place that I looked, in the research center, we have a lot of different veteran and soldier information. And so one of the things that we have are these yellow cards that were handed out during the 1990s, and it was called the Veterans Listing Project, and it was for all of Chautauqua County. And so veterans it was best if veterans filled it out themselves, but that if they had already passed, then their family members filled them out. So usually people are only in one war. And they're in only one branch of the service. But, so this is the front of the card. And I was like, I couldn't even, some of that in the middle there, I couldn't even figure out which ward the things went with.
Well, I think Hank put some of that down.
Okay.
He passed.
And then this is the back of it. And even that was confusing. So anyway, it all really kind of started, I think, when he was born, because he had 4 names. So not only was he in 4 wars and 4 branches of the military, but his name was Lloyd David Robert Peters. And so this card is from when he joined the National Guard in Buffalo, and it was 1915. And in 1916 he was a private, but in 1916 they were going off. A lot of them were going off to the border, the Mexican border. And so when you're in the National Guard, or when you were then, and your president called your National Guard up to go somewhere, but you had to be discharged from the National Guard and then enlist in the Army. And then when you got out, you had to discharge from the Army and re-enlist in the National Guard. So that was a lot of messing around. But so he was 17 years old, 5'5", 126 pounds, light hair, blue eyes, and he was a student. So,
Stuck his way in.
and then, so I had to put this in because this is, hi Greg, this is Company E of Jamestown National Guard. They also had to go through the rigmarole of discharging from the National Guard and being in the Army. And so these are our Jamestown guys. And so I'm sure it was similar with his Company I when he went to the border. So this is when they were coming home. You can see all those people all lined up along the streets when they were back in Jamestown. They had a very nice welcome home. I just had to throw that in. I'm sure that they did that in Buffalo as well, so you could kind of visualize.
He started out really in Buffalo, going to, like we said, Hutch Tech to school, and then he came to Jamestown.
Yeah,
But that's a great picture of people.
right. So he was, I forgot to tell you that he was born in 1898. And so this is World War I, and he was going into the Marines. And so he was with the 10th Regiment, and he served from, well, he was at Parris Island, but he enlisted August 9th, 1918, and then he was done April 30th, 1919. So this is his marriage license with Mamie Brown, and he was living in Jamestown at that point. He had come to Jamestown. I have him living in Jamestown in 1924, but they weren't in the city directory yet till 1926, because they skip a directory, so maybe it was 25. And so at that point, he had Peters Electric Service. So then I have to tell you a little thing, because I wondered, where was he in 1920? When did he, I was still searching for when he came to Jamestown at that point. And so in the 1920 census, he was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and he worked at a battery shop, and he was the battery man. So that experience, though, you can see it kind of all through his life. So in that census also, there were a lot of different nationalities, Italians and Irish and German, and also when I was looking at the industry, because I could see that his occupation was battery man, and so there was an auto shop nearby, and there was the battery shop, there was a steel plant, there was all sorts of stuff going on there. They got married in 1927. I have that written down when they got married.
I think it's 7.
Yeah. Well, I didn't write it on this one, but it was 1927. Oh, I don't know if it's in here or not. Well, it'll take me a long time to get to that probably.
I think it was
So
7.
then when he joined the fire department, it was 1929. And this is a very nice picture, but it was so neat that he had that already as a fireman. The time as a fireman, the most of the time that he spent at one of the stations was at Fenton Place. And so Tom Goodwill, my good friend and our board president, is always filling me in on stuff I don't know about the fire department. So I had asked, where was Fenton Place? Where was that station? And they said the address they would give was Brooklyn Square. And so Tom sent me this, which is, so in the beginning, Eagle Hose Company was a wooden building where the car and whatever that, is that a fire truck, an old fire truck in there?
Like an old police car.
Yeah, because this is in 1970, and I can see cars parked there, but, and Mayflower on the other side of it. So in the Sanborn maps that we also have at the Research Center, it makes it a lot easier to figure out where things are. So does this have the pointer on it? No, okay. So this pink rectangular that says Union Hall is where Fenton Place Station was. And the Fenton Mansion is here.
They didn't come down through Windsor, did they?
No, that was a different station.
Okay, it was there too.
Yeah, yes. He moved around, but
Yeah,
then
that
when
was
he
main.
stayed in one place
That
for a
was
long
the
time.
main area.
Yeah. So in that Fenton Place station also, it must have been, because it was so long, they had a lot of meetings there. So it was their union hall, but it was also where they taught people first aid. They had first aid classes. He ran those a lot. And there were other classes that the firemen and that everybody had to do. And so, but you can see where Brooklyn Square starts up there. So we're not far from Brooklyn Square here. So before he got there, and before he was at Fenton Place Station, they had closed the station and had taken the fire apparatus and everything out. And then there was some overwhelming unhappiness in this area of the people who lived here that said, we really do want to have a fire station here. So it was closed in July of 1927, and I should go by my pictures. Yes. Nope. I'm not in the right place. Anyway, it was closed in July and reopened, I think it was 28, and reopened in September. So they weren't without it very long, but there was so much disgruntledness in this area without a firehouse that they reopened it. And then they got a new truck. So that was nice. So this picture is at Fenton Place Station, and it's a picture of the last run with the horses and the fire apparatus on the wagon there. So that was also 1928. And so here he is again, filled out his registration card. And so this time he's going into World War II. And while he, was saying, I'm a fireman and all of this, he was 43 years old, but he was available. So.
The Newton there, 91 Newton.
Yeah.
That was the home they had before they had the Blanchard.
Yeah.
So I saw both ends of that.
I see. I don't know. There. So he enlisted in the Coast Guard, and they even told him, that he'd be a chief machinist mate on a schooner, and he wired them that he was accepting that position. And then he got a letter that said he was too old. But he was in it for a while. Oh, so they probably found that out because they tested. But so this is a few years later. He's still, that's a nice fire department uniform. And so after the Coast Guard didn't want him because he was too old, he enlisted in the Navy, and they did accept him. And so then he was in the Navy Seabees, and this is the picture that they used when they would put a blurb in the paper about, he was home on leave and then he's going to be going somewhere else. So that's the picture they used. So now he's an electrician's mate. And that's the CB logo for, for World War II. My dad was a CB too. And so then, after World War II, and he went back into the fire department, and he was at Fenton Place, and but I guess he got a little bit bored or something. So they reactivated the Civil Air Patrol, and so he was in that. And that helped also during Korea. He was flying, along the coast probably, is my guess. And then this is 1950, and he's learning to fly. And he's older, but he's willing. He had a lot to still give. So the one thing that I found out the most, and he's not done yet, but he, not only did he serve his country all these times, but he served his community in so many different ways. I don't really know how he had a wife and 4 children and two foster sons, and they did have one baby that died, and and then he was very active in his church. He was very active with Boy Scouts and scouting. He taught Cub Masters how to be good Scout Masters, and he just did so much in his community. So when, along the line there, he must have gotten his own plane, okay, because he was also into search and rescue. And so they had a Western New York Oh, and he was an honorary member of the sheriff's department because when they were doing search and rescue, the sheriff was in charge of that. And so they would call when they needed them. But so they wanted to have air and also mounted riders looking for the people. And they were able to, you know, get together and do a faster job of the search. This is a picture of him from his obituary, and it's a very there's a lot in this obituary that takes you a lot of time to digest, but it was a wealth of information. And so there were so many things that he did, you know, the Red Cross and so many things. And then, you know, later on, when most people would have retired, he was a salesman for the Gordon Bernard Company. And so they did birthday calendars. Different companies or organizations would do birthday calendars as fundraisers. And
Put
so
their
he,
picture in the center of the calendar, and then the
Yeah.
calendar had the regular days, and it had everybody's name, like your name, and that, it had your anniversaries on there, so you could look at that all year, and you run across somebody you knew, you could call, wish them a happy anniversary before it was even time for it, which was great.
so this was his church, First Congregational.
Now it's expired, but
And
all those little blocks down below were some of the people that helped sponsor the calendar for the area. He had a Lions Club. There was at least 4 calendars in our area at one time going. We used to have to mail out cards. He'd call and say, I need more of the cards, so we'd go up in the office upstairs at the house, mail them out the next morning. And he's, believe it or not, he started from Scranton, PA, and drove as far as the edge of New York City. And he'd do this regularly. And he had Buffalo Fire Departments, and he had Lions, and he had all kinds of places. So you had a different group. You might have a school picture there of somebody that was important.
so I was curious, in his obituary it said that he buried at Sunset Hill Cemetery. And so I was curious, how in the world, because it's a plaque, you know, that they have, and I was like, how are they going to get all that information about all of the wars that he was in? How would they do that?
Well, Randy called me this morning and said she might need a little help. I said, I'll give her what I can.
Well, so when I went to Sunset,
Well, you found between the
Uh-oh.
poles.
where did Andrew go? Darn it. The stone isn't on there. So the stone isn't included, but 1992, yes.
94 years old.
Yep, 94.
And it was funny because his dad was 96 when he died. He was involved with so much music in Buffalo. And Hank's sister, his mother died young, but I found a picture that's up there on the table of her with Lloyd sitting on her lap.
Yeah.
Hank didn't get to see. But it was funny. Paola would say to her, Paola would
So this is Lloyd.
say to the kids, the 4 boys, don't jump. Dad just got back in from, he worked at Shea's Theater doing music in there. He could play any instrument there was. And he came to Jamestown before, you know, he died. Dan did. He was 96, but they had him at the Allen Nursing Home. We hated to go there because it was so smelly. But no, Lloyd was really different. You know, you don't find too many that want to go to 4 different wars.
It was number 23. Oh, okay, maybe it was 24. So okay, go ahead.
Cemetery.
Well, here. Okay. This is one where they were searching the lake
Oh, yeah.
for a body. So that happened quite often. But so when I went to Sunset at his plaque and Mamie, so he did also remarry after she died. And I'm sure she was a very nice woman. But on the plaque, it's him and Mamie, together forever, it says. And there's praying hands on one side and the Masonic symbol on the other side. Not one thing about any of his military stuff, and no flag. So, but they wouldn't know because there's no information about it on his plaque. So that surprised me. I thought there'd be, you know, they'd find a way.
Steel service veteran thing. We'll have to get that up there. I did that for Bob Eagleston.
Oh.
He didn't, when he passed, he only had the ring, and he was a military person for our area too. But yeah, he believed in the military a lot.
Yes. So the funny thing was when he enlisted in World War II, went into the Navy after the Coast Guard said, no, you're too old. The article said, although he's trying to, how did it word it? He was trying to resist the military for as long as he could. That's fake news right there. Oh, and then I turned it off. But anyway, I thought that was really funny.
He had that, at Southern Texas, he had a colored crew that he was training down there, and the colored didn't know what snow was. They would go out, and they didn't have their shoes on. He said, "You got to put your shoes on." Oh, there were some good stories around the dinner table a lot of times when we were growing up. You better be in some sort of service.
What unit was he in the Marine Corps, or what year?
In the Marine
Started
Corps.
in the Marines, and then he went to
What year?
1918, so it was September 1918
yeah, he was only
through
16
April
then.
1919.
Did he go to, was he in there?
He was in, let's see, the 10th Regiment, so wherever the 10th Regiment was.
That was probably more stateside than it was the other, because they were still working on World War I and World War II, and he was in all those. And,
Oh, that was it.
I should have brought the fire chief thing.
Well, anyway,
Barb, do you know if he served overseas with the Seabees?
he was out there somewhere. There was the name of a ship that I saw in one of the things, and then I couldn't find it again. So I don't know what ship he was on. But he was, most of the time, he was an electrician's mate. And he had his own, electric service, and it was automotive, you know. And it was early in the 1920s, so.
Well, even before he passed, we always wondered about him. He talked about international batteries. He always talked. We've never seen a picture of him. He talked about using a dropper to fill the acid in the battery and this and that. Him and his three brothers had the Acadia Battery store up in Great Shore, a battery place. We saw him just before he passed away in the script. Unbelievable.
There was.
Peter's garage. It was something. It was unique. Made us all tickled there. We had heard the story, but we hadn't seen the picture, and there it was.
So Jeff, you were telling me about when you were growing up and all the kids that were in the house and
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
So why don't you come up and talk about all that? Oops.
Well, we grew up, and of course course, I was a foster. But Hank and I and Tom were like this. We were all close. And I had a real brother, Brian. But she took care of kids. And I wish there was a sign on the front lawn of Blanchard Street. This was the kids' house. Because, you know, when you were younger, a crib usually was wider for even like Greg's kids when they were growing up. She had the small half-size cribs, and she had in the one room at the top of the stairs, I still can picture this, is 5 cribs along the wall, babies in there, while the kids were going to school, Euclid School, Washington, or the high school. We would come home at lunchtime from Washington and have to help her make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches before we took off to go back to school. And she would take care of 21 kids a day, every day, 5 days a week. And I was telling Barb, I think we had the first franchise in Jamestown, not McDonald's and Burger King in them. We had French fries and hot dogs Monday through Friday, and then we would have fish or chicken or something on the weekends when there wasn't as many. I mean, we had some great kids. Some of your colleagues in the city, you know, Robert Rappel and Rosemary, they stayed there while Mom and Dad went on a vacation. We had the Camerons. They had 7 when they left to go to Sweden. We had them. And we would sleep up in the attic where it was like, good night, this is the Waltons. Anyways, it was funny. They came back with another kid, Stephen. And they lived right over there on Windsor where the brick wall is around. Greg, you've probably seen it. They lived there, and that was a big family. And we had Judge Bedine's granddaughter, and Judge Bedine was a children's judge here in Jamestown. And he was like family package with us. You know, if there was a kid that was needed and it was going to be adopted and it was at our house, she would work with them to get it to a good family. She never finished 8th grade. I didn't hear that story till Hank came down for my 60th birthday at the Community Foundation. She worked for Charles Price family on Lakeview, the Nord family on Lakeview. She'd go in the morning as a nanny, feed the kids and do them, and send them off to school or whatever. And it was funny. We had to learn how to shine shoes. I mean, I had to learn it when I went into service, but you had the white shoes for the little kids with the brown around the edge. If you got any white on the edge, you had to get the old brown shoe shine. You try to clean it, and then you shine them with a Carter diaper, one that was falling apart anyways. And but the kids, they were just so unique. Some of them come from broken homes and stuff, but when they left, they were community people. I have a friend that's reading Hank. Hank wrote a book before he passed. I've had several people. Randy Anderson read it in 3 days. He just couldn't lay it down. He said it was so funny. His wife kept asking him, what's so funny? Well, you'll have to come in here and read this part. He said, and the funny part of it was in big print, so you didn't have to worry. I don't think you've had it, Greg, but you should. It's been passed around. He didn't put
Really big print, yeah.
well, I mean, no. Well, I gave you that small print from the Pearl, Purple Heart ad. But I think growing up in a large family and seeing you had details and duties, we had to also, like on the weekend before we went downtown, back in the 50s, when I was born, there was over 60,000 people here, and people say, what? Well, you saw on here in the parade, there was a lot of people. That cheers you up. There's about 28,000 now. I ran for office in 77 when the blizzard was, and there was 39,000. It just seemed to go downhill. But you had respect in people that you had respect from people that, you know, they would even the kids would address you as Mr. Bloomquist or Mr. Peters or Mr. such and such. And you had the stores in town were booming. Bigelow's, Nugent's, and Lad and Lassie and all those. And Brooklyn Square had the Noah's Ark. You take a clothesline down and give it to the guy and pay on a dryer. These are things they don't do today. You know, yeah.
Talk about Caps restaurant, the restaurant.
Oh, Lloyd decided. Well, first he had a radio and TV place downtown. It was right under one of the Sunoco gas stations. It was the bottom floor. And you put in a new bulb in your TV, and he delivered back to your house. It was black and white. You had then we had Caps. It was down by Love School. It's on the side street where the laundromat and that was. You probably remember, Greg, going by there a few times. It was a little place, and you pull up. You got a hot dog for $0.25. You got a pop for $0.25. And on weekends, we had to pull the things like they have at the ballpark for the hot dogs. We had to pull them apart so they weren't glued together. Have them all ready for Lloyd to get ready for Monday. We had penny candy in these buckets, and we had them lined up. On the bottom, we recorded how many we put in that bucket, so that each week we know how much is coming back. And we was hoping that we were getting the money for it, or if Lloyd wasn't giving it to a sweet kid that he would come by. And that was great. And then he had the idea of, because of the TV, he wanted to go into antennas for the houses. But I think he's backed off on that one because Mianos, I think, down there on Newton used to be where the hair place is now. Used to be there. But everywhere in town you look, they had a red and white grocery store. And we had one on 5 Elton. And the wagon's in the attic. I was looking at it the other day and laughing about it. I think it's in better shape than I am still today, but we used to go over there at least 3 times a week and get cereal and different things from Mr. Olson and Mrs. Paulson. And it was a white grocery store at the time. And the store is still there, but the grocery part on the side is not there. And it was kind of nifty because you'd walk in, there was a candy rack full, all kinds of candy. Today, some of them you can't find even an advertisement of it, like, you know. But it was great. The prices were right, things were right. You walk down the aisles, there was a middle for cereal and for bread and stuff like that. And then they bolted the section on the wall so they could put the number 10 cans and heavy stuff on. In the back there was they did the meats. You know, they did ground beef and they put it in little things like you get French fries at the ballpark. They stacked the ground beef in there. And of course we had taken care of so many kids that down at the bottom of Pricer there was a brick building. Used to be Berg's and Reed's grocery store. And on the other side it was Dreyer's Meat Market. And we took care of their kids some, so if we had to go down and get something for dinner and that, Mr. Dreyer would make sure there was more and the bologna and different things. Well, one day I got one small story that Hank decided to go down and see Dr. Irvin. He lived down the street from us, and Billy and Tommy and Cindy were there. So he decided to take a picnic basket. And we used to kid each other. We used to be like the Rascals. Where Hank was short, like Spanky, and I was like Alfalfa, Tom was the other. And we had the dog. Hank's dragging this picnic basket down with ketchup, mustard, and bologna and all that down there. And so Dr. Irvin comes home that day for lunch. And he would eat in the hospital because he didn't like soup every day. His wife loved to make soup. Well, I saw Dr. Irvin once after that, and he said that was the best meal he had every day. It was a bologna sandwich between because, but we had some fun. And of course, Hank used to say to me, "Do the kids still play in the street?" I said, "Some of them do, some of them don't." because back when we were growing up, that was a big thing. You play touch football, you play, you know, you hide and seek. Somebody step on you if they were trying to find you before you got back to the telephone pole and stuff like that. But all in all, I think living with a second family like that, it was great. You had your jobs to doing chores, and like I said, the weekends we would get paid, but if our job was done, you would go down and watch 4 different theaters for westerns or whatever, and you could walk through town, and there was a lot of people. People didn't bother you like they, you know. And there was buses, and there was all the stuff that we normally don't have now. We had then. We had the Greyhound. We had the buses used to go through town. So one day we decided to take the bus up Sturgis, and the guy going, and the guys were throwing snowballs, so he slowed down. 10 of us are getting on the back of this bumper, hanging on and going up the hill. We figured this was good. Well, we did it a few times. Well, the last time we did it, the bus kept going, but we stood there in the middle of Sturgis with the bumper. The bumper came off. We're looking at each other like, what just happened? We still talk about that because you still have some of the guys in the area that were on there. And we lugged this bumper up to the top of the hill and leaned it up against the street sign. The guy come by, and we're still throwing snowballs on Newton now. He sees this thing, so he gets out, looks, he shoves it in underneath the bus, takes it back, and has it welded, but, you know. We even had, in the neighborhood when we were growing up, you know, this guy would come around with a pony and a cowboy outfit, and we'd wear it. For $5, he'd take your picture and give it to you. Hank still has his, and nobody knows where mine went to, but it's just different things we had. Of course, the snow, you were out there shoveling. You know, you were told you had to do something. You know, you didn't yell back too hard. And of course, Lloyd, he'd be on the road so much that when he was home, you know, Grandma, she decided to she had so many babies that, you know, the diapers, you used to wash them. They were Carter diapers. You didn't throw them away like the ones after that. Sometimes she'd have 1 or 2 in the toilet, and he'd come and say, oh, I got to go somewhere else. You know, Christmas was great, and I've seen everything from a 4-legged TV, the TV set up on top of 4 legs, a refrigerator now. You don't see a lot of them. But it had 4 legs and had this round thing where the refrigerator went around a little and that, and it was different. And then, of course, we had the dinosaur refrigerator. I always call that because I was telling Barb about the pie. We had pie up on the top of the refrigerator, and we had company that night. So we decided we were going to have apple pie. Grandma was talking to her sister on the phone, and we hadn't had any all for quite a while. So we took the rack down and passed it to the other guys. They put it on the table, took a paring knife now, and we had the old-fashioned pie plates. You didn't squeeze them, they didn't break the pie. We stuck the thing in and turned it. And we're going like this all the time, and we got trained that we're supposed to use this way. So we slid it back, ate the apples in the pie, put the lid back on, careful, put the rack back up on the refrigerator. We didn't touch the other pie because we were having company. Walter Giff Hayward was a relative of Lloyd's. He married Lloyd's sister. And he would come for pie and chicken pot pie. You know, we cooked the chicken, separated it and all that stuff, and made chicken and dumplings, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, those were days.
Jeff?
Huh?
Thank you.
I want to see if I can find the picture from the border reunion in 1936. It was
Barb, can you
Nope,
talk
it's not.
about how many years he was in the fire department? I kinda
24. It was 24.
I think it's over there on the table. I think it was 24
Retired in
24, 26.
50.
He was our captain.
Okay.
And you see his Marine document on the end there. Yeah, right there. Paris Island.
Okay.
See his 1917 football picture.
Yep.
If you hold that up and you look at the guy in the middle with the little blonde hair, that was Lloyd. He was the center that year. He was only 126 pounds. Fred Dunn was on there too. They only won one
We gotta
game
wrap it up.
in 67 and
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
Those hats, I would like to have one of them football hats. I bet Greg would have too. They were the leather hats.
Tom Goodwill and I played together, we didn't have helmets then.
Well, they didn't have much of a helmet. They didn't know what concussion was. I don't think that's why he was in the service so long.
Any other questions for Barb?
Hey, I just want to commend Barb. I was kind of at the beginning of this process. With
You
Jeff.
were. I said that when I started.
And I wasn't, but Jeff loved that. And it's a fascinating story, but I don't want to do it. And so Barb is taking, I'm so thrilled that you have a product here, and I commend you. I commend
Thanks,
you for it.
thanks.
A lot of research, and that was easy.
Um,
Jeff, thank you.
Well, I was glad to give it to you, Greg, because I knew you would have a lot of fun with it.
Well, exactly, I gave it to Barb.
Yeah. Well, I've been downsizing a lot. I just found different things. I sent some to Hank's wife and that because he's gone now. But it was really something. It was a lot of fun to grow up in a house where they. Oh, I even had a. You know, we had so many kids. Sometimes I had to sleep on the swing in the closet.
oh,
There was a wicker swing, but it was funny. Sometimes she had Betty. You remember Betty Bear and Greg?
Yeah.
Okay, we took care of them sometimes at night when she had duty. And nurses. Hank's sister was in maternity for 35 years, and my next door neighbor, Mary Parsley, were together. They worked together. When I was in the service, I delivered one, and I thought that was tough. They said, yeah.
So Jeff, I just want to conclude by the fact that it's good news that you broke the bumper of a municipal bus, and the statute of limitations is run, so you can.
I was saying,
You're saying it's been recorded here.
well, that's right,
that's funny.
the other one was,
Oh.
I think I told Barb.
More, yeah, Jeff, there's probably.
Oh,
Well,
Well, there's lots of things to look at here if you
Yep.
want to come up and look. And Barb, this is,
this is
anniversary.
a wedding anniversary, which is at 50?
55.
55.
That's the first one.
Lloyd and Mamie.
the first one.
She's the one with all. So she was also a doctor's assistant
Yep.
when
Dr.
they
Hank.
got married. So, but I'm sure after when
She
she
was-
started having babies, that was done.
Hank said he thought she wore earplugs till 11 o'clock at night, so we got away with too much.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Barb.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Greg.
And you know, we have in our research center, if you want to look somebody up, we have awesome things. You know, little nuggets, little pockets of treasures that, well, we have for a lot of different other subjects, but we do have a lot on veterans. So, thanks for coming.